George Washington is known as the father of the United States, but did you know there are secrets about him that history books often leave out? Here are 5 fascinating facts about him. Washington owned the Mount Vernon plantation, but never freed his slaves during his lifetime. He only arranged for their freedom after his death. As a child, Washington survived a deadly smallpox infection, which later helped him lead troops during the Revolutionary War. Although he was the first president, Washington never lived in the White House. It wasn't finished until after his presidency. Washington lost more battles than he won, yet his leadership kept the Continental Army alive and eventually made him president. Washington had dentures, but they were never made of wood. They were made from a mix of ivory, gold, and even human and animal teeth. The story of the United States is one of courage, struggle, and an unshakable desire for freedom. From the first settlers on the East Coast to the birth of a nation, the path to American independence was filled with challenges, heroes, and pivotal moments that changed the course of history forever. Today, we'll explore the incredible journey of America's fight for freedom and the events that shaped the country we know today. In the early 1600s, settlers arrived from Europe seeking opportunity, wealth, and religious freedom. Jamestown, founded in 1607, became the first permanent English settlement, while Plymouth followed in 1620 with the Pilgrims seeking religious freedom. Life in the colonies was tough. Harsh winters, disease, and the challenge of building new communities tested the determination of these early settlers. Yet, over time, towns and cities grew, and trade with Europe began to shape the economy of the colonies. By the mid-1700s, tensions between the American colonies and the British Crown started to rise. Colonists enjoyed a degree of autonomy, but increasingly resented the taxes and trade restrictions imposed by Britain. The Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, and the Tea Act were especially controversial, as they placed financial burdens on the colonists without giving them representation in Parliament. This gave rise to the famous phrase, "No taxation without representation." Protests and boycotts became common, and revolutionary sentiment started to grow. One of the most iconic acts of defiance happened in 1773, when American patriots disguised as Mohawk Indians boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water. This dramatic protest, known as the Boston Tea Party, directly challenged British authority and showed the colonies would no longer accept unfair taxation. While Britain reacted harshly, the event united the colonies in the fight for independence. In April 1775, the first shots of the Revolutionary War were fired at the battles of Lexington and Concord. Militia groups, often called Minutemen, confronted British troops trying to seize colonial weapons. Though small in scale, these battles marked the start of a war that would last 8 years. Leadership was key during these early days, and George Washington was appointed commander of the Continental Army. Despite facing poorly trained troops and limited resources, Washington's leadership and strategy proved vital for the colony's survival. The war was far from easy. Soldiers faced harsh winters, food and clothing shortages, and the constant threat of disease. At Valley Forge in 1777-1778, Washington's army endured freezing conditions and hunger, yet these hardships strengthened their resolve. With the help of foreign allies, including France, Spain, and the Netherlands, the Continental Army got much-needed supplies, funding, and troops. The dedication of ordinary soldiers, along with civilians who provided food, intelligence, and shelter, made victory possible. Several key victories shifted momentum to the Americans. The Battle of Saratoga in 1777 convinced France to openly support the colonies with troops and naval power. In 1781, the Siege of Yorktown led to the surrender of British General Cornwallis, effectively ending major combat operations. Throughout the war, intelligence, espionage, and clever strategies were critical, from Paul Revere's midnight ride to the use of coded messages between spies. Every victory, no matter how small, brought the dream of independence closer to reality. On July 4th, 1776, the colonies officially declared independence from Britain. The Declaration of Independence, drafted mainly by Thomas Jefferson, proclaimed that all men are created equal and have unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This bold statement was more than a political document. It was a vision for a new nation built on freedom and self-governance. Despite the risks, the signers of the Declaration committed their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to the cause of liberty. The fight for independence wasn't just about generals and political leaders. Ordinary people played crucial roles. Women, including Abigail Adams and Deborah Sampson, contributed by managing homes, running businesses, and even fighting disguised as men. Enslaved Africans and free Black Americans also participated, with some joining the Continental Army and others helping with logistics and intelligence. Native Americans were divided, with some siding with the British and others with the colonists, reflecting the complex dynamics of the time. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 officially ended the Revolutionary War, recognizing the United States as a free and independent nation. The new country faced immense challenges, building a government, establishing trade, and uniting 13 diverse colonies. George Washington became the first president, setting important precedents for leadership, civic duty, and the peaceful transfer of power. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights created a framework that balanced federal authority with individual freedoms, shaping the future of the nation. The American Revolution was more than a war. It was a movement that inspired generations around the world. It showed the power of ordinary people united by a vision of liberty and justice, the sacrifices, struggles, and courage of those who fought. For freedom laid the foundation for the United States' development into a nation based on democracy, human rights, and opportunity for all. Today, the story of America's fight for independence reminds us that freedom is earned, protected, and cherished. This is the story of America's path to freedom, a story of courage, struggle, and determination. If you want to explore more, fascinating moments in American history, and uncover secrets you won't find in textbooks, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Every day we bring history to life one story at a time.